Ross. Now, Ross has been around in the comics since the Hulk's first issue in 1962. He was the Army general in charge of the Gamma Bomb test that turned Banner into the Hulk. Now, just like in the movies, he is the father of Betty Ross, Bruce's love interest. So in the comics, he remained a military antagonist to the Hulk for years, but the MCU widened his role. He was first played by Sam Elliott in Ang Lee's The Hulk, and the 2008 film is a kind of soft reboot sequel, like we talked about in this video. So Ross was recast in 2008's Incredible Hulk and then played by Academy Award winner William Hurt. Now, like I said earlier, in the MCU, Ross was heading up a military program to recreate the serum that turned Steve Rogers into a super soldier. But instead, it created the Hulk. And then Ross hunted Banner because,
as far as I'm concerned, that man's whole body is property of the U.S. Army.
Now, in the comics and in the movie, hunting Banner became an obsession. In the movie, he even recruits a soldier named Emil Blonsky and gives him part of the cocktail that turns him into
an abomination.
So this began Ross's antagonistic relationship towards superheroes. So when he became Secretary of State, he immediately tried to rope the heroes in. He convinced Tony Stark and half the Avengers to sign the Sokovia Accords and imprisoned heroes like fugitives, even hunting down Black Widow. Now, following the events of Secret Invasion that we talked about earlier, Ross became president and was recast by Harrison Ford after William Hurt passed away in 2022. So I love that Ross is basically a co-lead in this movie. He's always been portrayed as just an antagonist to superheroes, but this is the first MCU movie that kind of treated him like a real person. And the central story revolves around this idea: can Ross change? Like the character that we've seen in the past was an obsessive monster who even put his ambitions ahead of the love of his daughter.
Don't ever speak to me as your daughter again.
The leader's goal in this movie is to prove that Ross is still that monster by turning him into a literal monster. And we do see that old Ross still lingers because the opening score uses military drums as Ross's theme to show that deep down, he's still an old soldier. Initially, we see Ross as a silhouette, hinting that this movie is going to be about him confronting his dark side. And maybe, like Dewey Cox, Ross just has to think about his whole life before he presidents. Now, we see that his campaign slogan was "Together," much like on our Ross 24 shirt. And we see that this is how Ross hopes to govern, by bringing together the nations of the world for a common cause. Notice he's even wearing a striped red and blue tie to show that he is trying to be president for the red and blue states. And of course, this is Harrison Ford's second time playing the Prez, after he beat up Gary Oldman as a terrorist in Air Force One.
Get off my plane.
Fun note about that movie, there was a scene where they couldn't quite get the punch right, and so he told Gary Oldman, "Just slug me in the face." So this punch is real. But Ross's rosebud is his only family member, Betty Ross. Even now, at the zenith of his power, he still just wants to know if his daughter has bothered to reach out to him. So in his first speech, he makes an appeal to restore normalcy to the nation. He recounts the events of Infinity War and Endgame when everybody blipped away for 5 years. And then he catches us up on the ending of the Eternals that we talked about earlier. Then we get a news montage that gives the audience a ton of exposition. Like, guys, MCU movies have always done this, even Guardians of the Galaxy.
And riots broke out across the Kree Empire today, protesting the recent peace treaty signed by the Kree Empire.